This is our Lagos Network Center. My name is Daniel Praise Osedebame. Now, on this edition of State of the Nation, we are going to be examining the Nigerian economy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. How far have we gone, and what is the next step for Nigerians? Since taking over office, his administration has introduced several economic reforms, including tax adjustment and initiatives aimed at addressing structural inefficiency. However, these policies have sparked debate with concerns about rising inflation and a high cost of living and the overall economic outlook. Today, we are honored to have a renowned global affairs analyst, and he's the director of Commonwealth Institute. He's in person of Professor Killer Anthony. Thank you so much for finding time to be on the program.
Good to be here.
We appreciate your time, and so sorry for keeping you waiting for a while.
That's all right.
All right, now help us now. How would you assess the performance of Nigeria's economy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Well, I think, unprecedentedly, we've taken some very radical steps. The dual input of the removal of the fuel subsidy and the unification of the forex, the increase in tariffs, and the removal of certain subsidies, including that of electricity, that has spiked prices, are things that are quite radical. The very tough thing. A few months ago, I was in Cambridge, England, and there was a round table called the Cambridge African Round Table, where the matter of Nigeria was examined. And the question they were asking in Cambridge is that this reform, is it going to lead to redemption or destruction of Nigeria?
A big question.
It's a big question. Well, history will tell. History will tell if Bola Tinubu is bold or reckless. That is what we'll see. In the meantime, though, we know that things are tough for people.
Definitely.
We know that costs are rising, goods and services are not enough, and there's not a lot of jobs, so things are very tough at the moment. The position of the government that these sacrifices will lead to a better place. As a citizen, we have to say amen to that. We have to hope that the government is right. But as an analyst, I have my doubts. I'm not very impressed the way things are going, but let's see how it goes. But I think when you ask me, what to expect, what comes to my mind is that this government certainly has good intention.
Okay.
But my problem is how they're going by what they're doing and the pain that is causing the people. That is the
Now, talking about pain and talking about intentions,
yes.
Some analysts have actually said the government have good intentions, but the implementations of some of their policies are not timely. While the government has come out to say that Nigerians should be patient, this is like a baby step pain. How long should Nigerians bear this pain, Dr. Killer? Professor Killer?
Well, that's the problem. It is for those that are inflicting the pain to tell how long the pain should last for. This is part of where I disagree with the government. Let us all agree that some changes needs to be made because the ones before them, and I want to be on record for this, that especially the Buhari administration did not do well.
Okay.
That there is a need for some radical changes in the way we're doing it. Let us assume that is true. But I dispute the approach that we're making. So what have we done so far? We've increased the minimum wage to about 75,000 naira. But we've not increased the amount of goods and services available. I want our viewers to think about it. What we've done is that we've given more money to buy the same amount of things we have. So the prices are going to go up. That's induced inflation. We caused that inflation ourselves. If I were advising the president, if I were the Minister of Economy and Finance, or if I were the President of Nigeria, what I would have done 2 years ago would have been different. I would have come in to say, fellow Nigerians, we need to make some sacrifices. Now, this sacrifice will start from me.
Okay.
I am going to freeze my salary. There will be no allowance. Then I'm going to tell all my ministers to take pay cuts, to take cuts in their pay, to freeze their allowances. And I'm going to ask the Senate and House of Rep, everybody, to not to take more money, actually reduce it. We're going to roll back a lot of expenditure. Once I do that, then I'm now going to say, to make this thing work, because really, the sacrifices are not enough. It's just symbolic, but symbols matter. I'll say to make this thing work, the rest of us all have to make sacrifices.
That's those in government.
No, government have done their bit.
They've done their
First
okay.
government. And I'll say now, we the people.
Okay.
People now have to make sacrifices. So I'm going to call on Labour to say, do not ask for increase for 18 months or for 2 years. Let us keep the wages where they are. That way, we're going to fight inflation in the real way. Because if the money is not there, things will not go up.
Definitely.
Then I'm going to say, all the money we save from all those sacrifices, we're going to impute it in production. So what will happen is that we're going to try to increase the amount of goods and services that we produce. We're going to reduce the amount of money that's in people's hand. That way, not only the prices will fall, but the naira will increase its value. Because that way, if we all have only 35,000 naira to spend, the prices will go down because that is the money available. And that way, the value of our money will grow and prices will go down. It's an economic debate.
Would there ever be a time that naira will appreciate over dollar? There was a time $2 was equal to $1.
Yes. Well, I doubt that will happen again. But here's the thing: if we set our mind to it, you see, this is where vision and leadership comes in. If we have a group of people, a group of men and women who have influence in our economy, and they set themselves a target to say, let us do things that would boost our naira. If you don't get back to where we were in the 70s when it was $2 to 1 naira, at least we can go to where we were in the 80s when the naira was, hundreds to a dollar. That's the point. You need vision and intention, and then the vigor to carry out these things. But we don't see that a lot these days.
Talking about visions and intention, what is your take on the new tax policies introduced by this administration, and how do you think they align with the northern governors' concerns?
Well, I think I agree with those tax reforms. They're very, very clear about it. I fully support the tax reform they're bringing in. There are a few things that I wouldn't have done, but overall, for example, as an economist, my view in political economy is I'm allergic to tax increase. I'm always saying let's reduce the tax, let's not take more tax, because people say to me, and people who know me, they always challenge me. I was just yesterday, I was coming from the airport, and somebody told me and said, "Oh, Prof, I read your book on tax. You're always saying low tax. How do we fund government?" I said, "Well, you fund government by private partnership, not by taxing people. You let private people come and build whatever you want to build, and they make money from the users. You don't need to tax people." So generally, I'm allergic to tax. I want low tax. To that part, the increase in the VAT, I'm not very keen on. But I'm also happy we've reduced VAT on health, on education. The full package I like. But I think, again, approach. I think the problem, I'm very surprised that because some people in government, no need to pretend. We know ourselves. Some of them are friends for over 20, 30 years. But I'm surprised that they missed the communication and the making of the policies, because this idea that the northern governors are coming out to be against it and people are against it, I think is either because they're mischievous or they're misinformed about it. They're misinformed if they see the tax reform as against the north, but they're mischievous if they know it is not against the north and they still pretend as if it's against them. Clearly, the idea of saying that they're going to reduce the amount of money they get by being more people or just by being in the north, they will not be happy with that because they're losing something. But overall, I think it's a good thing. But I blame the government because they've not communicated well with their own people. When I mean their own people, I mean their party members. Because if you look at the strong opposition coming from the north, within the APC,
Definitely.
is led by a state from where the vice president comes from where perhaps the most senior northern politician comes from. They could have talked this among themselves. This shows you that there is not enough consideration and consultation before policies are made.
So there seems to be a kind of division from the party level.
Well, yes, the vision, but I think more than the vision, there is lack of communication, lack of cohesion. I have a book coming out next year. Let me give you an exclusive on it.
Okay.
And it's about policy making, the process of policy making. I didn't even know this was going to happen. Well, I was just writing my own book for my academic pursuits. But, the Nigerian case shows you that when you make policies without consulting and communicating well, you get into trouble. Ideally, before the president or the presidency comes out with a policy, they should have discussed it with their party members, with the legislative arm of government, with experts and maybe the public then, so that we're all aware and we impute in it before we propose. Not that we propose first, then we debate.
So do you think
naive.
This policy, if implemented, does it have the capacity to boost our economy in any way?
Well, I think it's going to force us to boost it. And especially, you take, for example, this idea of linking consumption with the amount of money that is remitted to people. I think it should force the people who are losing out on it to raise their productivity level, to raise their consumption level, so they can benefit more from it. I think that is the incentive that is inside this reform. I feel bad, for Northerners, because I think I am at home in most parts of Nigeria, and I feel so. I know, different kind of people. Unlike most of the people watching us, where they see many Nigerians as very foreign, I want to assure you that just like the way you're sitting at home across this country, from Sokoto to Benin to anywhere, from Calabar to Zamfara, people are just like you, just minding their business, dreaming and hoping and wanting to love, trade, and learn. And I think it's very humiliating when the governors come to think that this thing is against them because they're taking away money that they're giving to them. It makes them look like parasites and beggars. If I were a northern leader, I'm going to say, yes, we're going to roll up our sleeves and make things happen for ourselves, and we won't care. As a matter of fact, I appeal to governors of Nigeria to find a way to rely less on the central and see how they can boost productivity. Let me underline here, because this thing, I'm not a fan of IGR, because IGR is tax. That's total nonsense. What would you be looking at? The states, how productive are they? How much employment are they giving? How much innovation? What kind of specialization are they for? Nigeria has 36 states and 774 local government. The Nigeria of my dream is a place where, of those 36 states, you can imagine about 20 centers of important things. You look at Edo State and you say, Edo State is known for the production of these goods and services. You look at another state and you say, that state is known for IT. That is our Silicon Valley. You look at another state and say, that state is known for production of electrical items. That's the way we need to be thinking.
But traditionally, most of our governors, they depend on internally generated revenue.
Yeah, you see, that's a lazy way of thinking. That's so outdated. You need a dynamic view. You need a way of thinking that thinks more of what you can produce and less of what to distribute. I always like to say that you need to make the oven bigger, not the knife to cut it. At the moment, we're always thinking that let's cut it this way, let's share it that way. No, we need to think of more goods and services. We need to have so much that we have enough to produce. In terms of not just products, even people, this jackpot thing. If we need doctors, let's produce more. The ones who want to go, let them go. Let's become a country of exporting, because those people, when they go, they send money to the country and we all grow.
And it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. We have to, but you need vision. You have to think that way.
But in a way, talking about moving from consumption to production, we still have inflation hitting us. In fact, as a matter of fact, inflation has so risen that an average Nigerian might find it difficult to survive in this time. What should the government do at a short term to ensure that they cut down these high costs?
Well, you start from the causes of inflation. The kind of inflation we have in Nigeria are caused by two things. One is the increase in cost of production, and two is the reduction of amount of goods and services produced. Let me read from right to left. The reduction in goods and services produced, take in alphabetical that A for agriculture, for example. The reason why we have less food is because we're producing less. We're producing less because most of the farms are insecure. The farmers are not there. So what does the government do? The government needs to say, we want to increase food production. We want to have bumper harvest. So what do? We need to leverage on three things. We need to leverage on security. The same way when we have election where they send all police and soldiers to the town, let us send soldiers and police to the farms 24/7 until terrorists and bandits and thieves cannot come near, because if they come near, they get shot or they get arrested. We need to create a situation where bad people are afraid. At the moment in Nigeria, good people are afraid, bad people are not afraid. So we need to turn that around. You secure the farms, you make sure goods and services are going on. That's in terms of security. The other one is in terms of innovation. We need to challenge our universities and our centers of excellence. The Commonwealth Institute for Nigeria is doing some in agriculture, for example. In 2025, we're planning to train 100 agri entrepreneurs that will look at the various part of agriculture, not just planting or rearing, in terms of warehousing, distribution, storage. You want to teach them the nitty-gritty of increased production, different kind of things. And that is on one side. That's innovation. Then you want to intervene through finance as well. You want to make finance available to people who are producing and who are employing.
Okay.
So that way, you don't put money in consumption side, you put money in the production side. If you do that, it will help you produce a lot more. Then it will reduce the cost of production as well. And that's the best way to fight inflation.
Okay, now let's look at the issue of unemployment. Since your institute has been doing well, unemployment continues to rise, particularly among youths. What policy or programs should the government prioritize to create sustainable employment?
Well, I think, again, I would, really simplify it to three things. One is to get people to have the right skills to the job. Very important. Now, when I say right skill, it's very important to know that people still need education. There's some people saying our curriculum does not train people for work. Let's stop that nonsense. People must get a first degree. They must get a general education that teaches them how to learn, how to reason, and how to act properly. You can't train the whole population to be producers. That's total rubbish. We talk about these things. It doesn't make sense. Allow people to have good general education so they become good citizens, so they know what is right and what is wrong. Then they learn the skills to produce. That's where professional education comes from. I argue, and I'm sure a lot of people want that for their children. I think a good country should be a country where we have a lot of graduates. Then after that graduation, they have some skills that they've developed, to move on. So we need to get them to acquire the skills to innovate, to produce. Then we also need to help. When I say help, I mean in terms of finance, good access to good loan, access to infrastructure. We need to create a framework that stimulates production. That is the way to fight unemployment. Skillful, trained people, and a market that is willing to absorb them. That's what you need
Skillful,
to create.
trained people and a market that is willing to absorb them.
Those
but
people.
to an extent, you talked about loan and access to help.
Yes.
But some persons are already saying the government of the day, they are not really open to, do they have policies and programs that is open for giving out soft loans?
Yeah.
But the government is good at giving palliatives.
Well, yeah, that's a terrible idea. I'm against palliative, generally speaking. I'm against it in all sense. I'm against even the word palliative. Palliative it's terrible how we say something in this country. Palliative is what you give to people who are about to die. it's a terrible one. It's something you just give.
But that's what we get from the government.
Yeah, no, that's about. We
that
need
the
to
government is
stop
not doing well. You get rice.
No, we need to stop doing that. We need to stop doing that. That doesn't make any sense, because that's going to finish. Instead of doing palliative, we need to incentivize those who want to produce.
Okay.
It is better to give one person all the money you want to give to 10 people, if that one person can employ even 5 people.
Whoa.
That's a better sense. Because those 5 people would then feed 5 families. So in a way, you've done 25. Whereas if you give 10 people, they're just going to eat it. And that's the end
And
of
it
it.
ends there.
And it ends there. We need to think that way.
All right,
That's
Prof.
what's
Killer,
easy.
we are due for a break now, and when we return back, we'll be taking the final lap on the program. Do stay with us. All right, welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, still this morning on ITV from our network studio here in Lagos, Nigeria. We still have with us Professor Killer Anthony, a global affairs analyst, and of course, the director for Commonwealth Institute. Thank you so much for staying with us on the program.
Good to be here.
All right, let's talk about trust. To an extent, many Nigerians remain skeptical about government policies. Now, how can this administration build trust and bridge the gap between the government and the people?
Well, I mean, the one thing about trust is to keep your word, really. You know, if you say something is going to happen, you make it happen. If it's not going to happen, you don't say it. And if you've said it and you realize that it's not going to happen, you say it in advance. You say, sorry, we told you refinery is going to be open in May. Then you get to February and you see this is not happening. You call a conference. You tell the nation, we're sorry, we're having problem with this May. That's the way to do. That's the way to build trust. The other thing about trust is that you cannot tell people to sacrificing and you are enjoying yourself. That does not help trust as well. But trust also has to do with the electoral process, because if you're voted into power in a way that is disputed, people will not really, trust you. So we need institution and communication to build trust, and of course action. Institution, communication, and action. ICA, we call it instead.
Now, for every politician, all they think about is the next election. And to an extent, the PDP is already building up, and the former vice president of the country, Atiku Abubakar, has been gearing up probably to run again for maybe the 10th time. Do you think every politician should always look at the next elections or look at how to improve the lives of the people?
Well, man, they're politicians. Will always look at election. We shouldn't be naive about it. That it's like then should footballers be looking at the next league? Of course, they're going to look at it. But I disagree with people with this mindset that think that politicking should be separated from resolving the problem of the day. It's a wrong way of thinking. It's an immature, underdeveloped mindset. Because in reality, the two things are linked. If you are in government and you want to be re-elected, the best way or the decent way to work for re-election is to do things for which people will trust you and say, we don't want you to go away because you're doing well and we hope you do more. That's why they say 4 more years, or people can say more of this. If you're in a position and you want to come into power, the best thing to do while thinking of election is to come up with ideas that people will say that, well, maybe that man deserve our attention. That's the way to do it. The part of the problem we have is weak institutions. The good, and maybe the parliamentary system does that better. The good opposition in the country should be that for everything government does, they should provide an alternative, a clear alternative to say, we would have done it this way. Then people will judge. And when they agree with government, there's nothing wrong. They should come out and say, well, this one that the government does is a good idea. I think, so I don't believe in that dichotomy. I don't believe in that division that people are politicking so they're not doing government. It happens because they're doing it the wrong way. They're doing it in a way that I consider barbaric and underdeveloped.
All right, quickly, finally, Prof, what are your projections for Nigeria under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the next 2 years?
Well, I think it's a gamble. If the things they're doing works, then it will be a better place. If it doesn't work, then we're going to be in big trouble. It's a roll of the dice because the path is not very clear. What Nigeria needs is very clear to Nigeria. We need stable electricity. We need access to good road, good health, employment, and access to goods and services. Affordable. The things we need are very clear, so we can measure them. So we just wait and see. It's very difficult to project.
I'll take that as your final word, Professor. Thank you very much for being on the program. Well, we've been speaking with Professor Kila Anthony, the Director, Commonwealth Institute, and he's a Global Affairs Analyst. Now, from our Lagos studio, let's quickly give you a parting shot before we link you up with our Abuja Network Center. Gratitude turns what we have into enough and more, and it unlocks the fullness of life. The question is, what are you grateful for? My name is Daniel Praise Osek Debame.